The hospital room smelled like cold metal and cleaning spray. The steady beep of a heart monitor echoed through the room, breaking the silence. Mark sat quietly by the hospital bed, his hands shaking as he held the small, pale fingers of his daughter, Emily. Tubes ran from her arms, machines hummed softly around her, and yet none of it felt real. It felt like a terrible dream. He leaned forward and brushed a strand of blonde hair away from her forehead. Her skin was warm, but she didn't open her eyes. She hadn't spoken in days. She had only turned 15 last month. Mark whispered, "Can you hear me, Emmy?" No answer, just the slow rise and fall of her chest. His lips trembled, and he felt something sharp press against his throat, regret so heavy it made it hard to breathe. He had never told her, not once, not in words. And now, what if she never woke up? It wasn't that he didn't love her. He did, with every breath in his body. But Mark was not the kind of man who said those things. He had grown up in a house where feelings were locked away like secrets. His father never hugged him. His mother never said, "I'm proud of you." Mark learned to work hard, stay quiet, and never cry in front of others. Even when Emily was born, he didn't cry. Not when she took her first steps. Not when she called him daddy for the first time. He showed his love by working long hours, buying her everything she wanted, making sure the house was warm and safe. But he never said the words she needed to hear, and now she was lying here, still, pale, silent. He remembered the last thing they talked about before the accident. He had come home from work late again. Emily had waited all evening to show him her science project. She was so excited. She had stayed up for days working on it. "Dad," she had said, running up to him with a big grin. "You won't believe what I built." He was tired, hungry, stressed. He waved her off and muttered, "Later, Emmy. I'm busy." Her smile faded. That was 3 days ago. The next morning, she had left for school angry. They didn't speak. That afternoon, her school bus was hit by a speeding truck. She never made it home. Now Mark was here, staring at the fragile girl in the bed, wishing he could go back. Wishing he had just looked at her, just listened, just said, "I love you." The door opened, and a nurse walked in quietly. She smiled gently and checked the monitors. "She's stable," the nurse said softly. "That's good news." Mark nodded but didn't smile. "Is she in pain?" "No," the nurse said. "She's asleep. Deep sleep. But sometimes people can still hear you. Keep talking to her." He nodded again, but what would he say? He stood and walked to the window. The sky outside was gray and heavy with clouds. Rain tapped gently against the glass. His reflection stared back at him, his eyes tired, his face hard, his lips sealed. Mark thought about all the times he could have told her he loved her, when she cried after scraping her knee, when she won a school award and looked for his face in the crowd, when she had a bad dream and knocked on his bedroom door, even when they watched movies together and she rested her head on his shoulder. So many chances, all missed, and now he might never get another. He turned around and walked back to her side. Slowly, he sat down again and took her hand. His voice broke as he whispered, "Emily, I love you. I've always loved you. I just didn't know how to say it." A tear rolled down his cheek. "The first in years. I'm sorry, baby. I should have told you every single day." The machines kept beeping. The air felt still. He waited, but there was no sign that she heard him. He lowered his head and cried. In that quiet hospital room, a father's silence had finally broken. But was it too late? The next few days were a mix of hope and fear. After Emily's hand twitched, the doctors ran several tests. They called it a positive response. Her brain was still showing activity. It meant she wasn't completely gone, but it didn't mean she would wake up right away. Mark stayed by her side almost the entire time. He didn't leave for more than a few minutes. He talked to her every day, hoping she could hear him. He told her about her childhood, about the tiny things she might have forgotten. The way she used to hum when she drew pictures. The time she tried to make cookies and use salt instead of Sugar. How she'd dance in the living room when no one was watching except he had been watching, from behind the hallway door, smiling without saying a word. He had so many memories, so many chances to say something, to show love, and he had missed almost all of them. Now, he was learning that silence doesn't protect people. It leaves them wondering. Mark spent hours thinking about how he had grown up. His own father had never said "I love you," not once. Not on birthdays. Not on holidays. Not even when Mark graduated high school. It had always been about being tough, not soft. His dad used to say, if you feed them and put a roof over their head, that's love. So Mark believed that too. He followed that same path, thinking actions were enough. But Emily needed more than a roof. She needed warmth, words, affection. He had failed her, but he was here now. One evening, as the sky turned gold outside the hospital window, Olivia sat beside Mark. It was quiet in the room, except for the steady beeping of the monitor and the soft whoosh of the ventilator. She moved her fingers again today, Olivia said. Mark nodded. I saw, just a little, but it's something. You've changed, she said after a pause. Mark looked at her, surprised. I mean it, she continued. You used to keep everything inside. Now, you sit here and talk to her like you're best friends. He looked down at his hands. It shouldn't take something like this to wake me up. Olivia gave him a sad smile. That's life, isn't it? We don't realize how much people matter until we're close to losing them. I don't want to lose her, Mark said. His voice cracked. Then make sure she knows that. Every day. No more silence. The next morning, something happened. Emily opened her eyes, not wide, just a flutter, but they opened. Mark was the only one in the room when it happened. At first, he thought it was another twitch, but then her eyelids lifted again, and this time, they stayed open a little longer. Emily, he whispered, stepping closer. Emily, it's Dad. I'm here. Her eyes looked unfocused, cloudy, but they were open. He ran to the hallway and shouted for the nurse. Within moments, a team was there, checking her vitals, calling for the doctor. Olivia arrived right after, her hands shaking. It's her, she's waking up, she said, rushing to Emily's side. The doctors explained that it might take time for her to speak, to move, or even understand what was happening. Her brain had been through a lot, but this was good news, really good news. After the room cleared, Mark sat close and held her hand gently. I'm here, he said. You're safe. He watched her eyelids slowly close again, but this time, it wasn't from unconsciousness. She was just tired. A few hours later, she opened her eyes again, and this time, she looked at him, right at him. Her lips trembled a little, like she wanted to say something. Mark's throat tightened. His heart pounded. It's okay, he said softly. You don't have to talk. Just rest. I'm not going anywhere. He leaned in closer. There's something I've wanted to say to you for a long, long time. His voice shook. His hands did too. I love you, Emily, so much. I've always loved you. I didn't say it enough. Or maybe I never said it at all. And I'm sorry. I was wrong. Her eyes filled with tears. Just a little. He wiped them gently with a tissue. I don't deserve another chance. But if you give me one, I promise I'll never stop saying it again. She blinked, slowly, then again. Her hand tightened slightly in his. Mark stayed like that for a long time, whispering words he should have said years ago. He told her he was proud of her, that she was brave, that she was beautiful, that she mattered. As the sun set again, Emily slept peacefully, her heart beating strong, her body healing slowly, and Mark, he had finally broken the silence. He had finally become the father he should have been. Now, he just had to keep being him, because he had been given the greatest gift of all, one more chance. Recovery was not easy. Just because Emily had opened her eyes didn't mean everything returned to normal. In fact, it was just the beginning of a long, painful journey. She couldn't speak yet. Her muscles were weak. She had to relearn how to sit up, how to swallow, how to move her fingers on command, but Mark was there for every second of it. He arrived early in the morning and stayed until late at night. Some days, Olivia would come and stay with them, but most of the time, it was just Mark and Emily. He became her voice, her hands, and her strength when she had none. At first, she could only respond with small movements, one blink for yes, two for no. Later, she could nod a little. Then, she started whispering single words. Mark remembered the first time she whispered, "Dad." He had been holding her hand, reading a book out loud when he heard it, soft, breathy, almost like a ghost. "Dad." He dropped the book in shock, his eyes filled with tears. "Did you just say something?" She looked at him and nodded. "You said, Dad?" He asked again, this time more careful, afraid he imagined it. She smiled, just a tiny, crooked smile. Mark leaned forward, holding her hand against his cheek. "Say it again, Dad," she whispered again. This time, a little louder. He broke down crying. In that moment, it didn't matter what had happened before. It didn't matter that he had failed so many times, or how cold he had been in the past. She had called him Dad, and she meant it. Weeks passed. Her voice grew stronger. She began physical therapy. At first, she couldn't even sit up by herself. Then came the walking bars, the foam mats, the leg braces. Mark watched as she fell, cried, got angry, but she didn't give up, and neither did he. One evening, after a difficult therapy session, Emily sat beside him in her wheelchair, looking out the hospital window. "Do you remember that time I fell off my bike when I was 8? She asked, her voice soft but clearer now. He smiled. "Of course. You scraped your knees, your palms, even your forehead. You looked like you'd been in a war." "You didn't say anything," she said. "You just picked up the bike and walked back to the house. You didn't even ask if I was okay." Mark winced. "I remember. I told myself, if I baby her, she'll never learn, but inside, I wanted to cry with you." Emily nodded. "That day, I thought you didn't care." He looked at her. "I did care. I just didn't know how to show it. I thought love had to be tough. It doesn't," she said quietly. "Sometimes love just needs to say something." Mark leaned back, feeling the weight of all the years pressing on him. "I've been trying to say it now," he said. She nodded again. "You're getting better at it." Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. Healing. It wasn't perfect. The past couldn't be erased, but it could be softened. One morning, the doctor walked in with good news. "We believe Emily can be discharged in a week," she said. "She'll still need therapy, but she's strong enough to continue from home." Mark's heart leaped. He looked at Emily, who was blinking back tears. Home. It felt like a dream. The day she left the hospital, Mark pushed her wheelchair through the lobby. Nurses clapped. Doctors waved. Olivia was waiting outside with balloons and flowers. Emily wore a pink jacket and a small smile, and though she still looked tired, she was glowing. Mark had cleaned and prepared the house for her return. He installed a ramp at the front door, bought new soft blankets, even learned how to cook basic meals she could eat easily. He was trying. Every day, they spent the evenings watching movies. He gave her the remote and let her choose anything she wanted, even if it was romantic dramas he would have rolled his eyes at before. One night, while watching a silly comedy, she suddenly said, "I miss this." "Missed what?" he asked. "Just us being together. Even if we're just sitting quietly, it feels different now." "You're different," he nodded slowly. "I miss this too." There was a pause, then she whispered, "Do you think Mom would be proud of us?" Mark swallowed hard. He hadn't talked about her in a while. "I think she would," he said. "She always told me I was too hard on you. I wish I had listened to her sooner." "Better late than never," Emily said. That night, Mark went to bed with a strange feeling, not sadness, not guilt, but peace. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was failing. He felt like he was finally becoming the father Emily needed. He knew they still had a long road ahead: therapy, pain, patience, but they were walking it together. And now, nothing was left unsaid. Every night before bed, he made sure to tell her, "I love you," because he never wanted to feel that kind of regret again, ever. The seasons began to change. Spring slowly faded into summer, and with it came warmth, light, and a new rhythm to life at the Carter home. Emily was still recovering, but she could now walk short distances with a cane. Her laughter returned. So did her appetite. She had grown stronger, not just in her body but in her spirit. And so had Mark. He wasn't the same man he used to be. He wasn't cold. He wasn't distant. He wasn't trapped in his own silence anymore. Each morning started with a soft, "Good morning, sweetheart." Each night ended with an "I love you," and the words in between those mattered too. They talked more about the past, about the future, about silly things like their favorite candy or which movie villain was the worst. And the heavy things, like grief, guilt, and letting go. Mark had begun going to a therapist himself. He wanted to fix not just how he treated Emily, but how he viewed love, emotions, and vulnerability. For the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid to open up. One Sunday afternoon, Emily and Mark sat together on the back porch. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass. A breeze moved through the trees. Olivia had come by earlier to drop off some of Emily's favorite books. Mark turned to his daughter. "Do you remember that first night I brought you home after the hospital?" he asked. Emily nodded. "You cooked eggs and burned them," he laughed. "They were awful." "Yeah, but I still ate them." They both chuckled, but then Mark grew quiet. "I was scared that night," he said. "Terrified, actually." "Why?" "I thought I had lost you for good. And when I didn't, I realized just how much I'd taken you for granted. How many chances I missed to say I loved you." Emily looked down. "You say it now, all the time." "I'll never stop," Mark said. "Even if I say it 1,000 more times, it won't make up for the years I stayed silent." She placed her hand over his. "Maybe, but it means everything to me now." He looked into her eyes. "You saved me, Emily. You really did. I didn't know how to love properly until I almost lost the one person I loved the most." They sat there for a while, the sky slowly turning orange with the setting sun. Later that night, Emily called Olivia. "Hey," she said, her voice cheerful. "Guess what? I took 10 steps today without the cane." "That's amazing, Em," Olivia replied. "How's Dad?" "He's good," Emily said, smiling. "Really good. He made pancakes this morning, and he's been reading again. He even signed up to volunteer at the community center." "No way." "Yeah. He's becoming soft." "I like soft, Dad," Olivia said with a laugh. Emily did too. The next few months passed gently. Emily enrolled in an online college program, something she had put off for years. Mark helped her with her assignments, cooked, cleaned, and even learned how to fold fitted sheets from YouTube, a big achievement, in his opinion. One night, Emily had a nightmare. She screamed in her sleep. Mark rushed to her room and held her hand until she calmed down. When she opened her eyes, she was crying. "I thought I was back in the hospital," she whispered. "I couldn't move. I couldn't speak, but you're here now," he said gently. "You're safe, and I'm not going anywhere." She clung to him. "Promise?" "I promise. I'll say it every day, just in case you ever forget." "I love you, Emily." She held onto those words like they were a warm blanket. From that day, Mark made a new habit. He didn't just say "I love you" at night. He found different ways to say it throughout the day. "You're my favorite person," he'd say in the morning. "I'm proud of you," he'd say after her therapy sessions. "You're stronger than you think," he'd remind her. And most of all, "Thank you for giving me another chance." One afternoon, the doorbell rang. Emily answered, and there was Olivia, holding a small scrapbook. "I made this," she said. "It's called Dad's Second Chance." They flipped through it together, photos of Mark pushing Emily's wheelchair, cooking breakfast, laughing, sitting by her hospital bed, dancing awkwardly in the living room. At the very last page, Olivia had written, "Sometimes people we love forget how to love out loud, but when they remember, it's the most beautiful thing in the world." Emily showed it to Mark that night. He read the final line slowly, his eyes filling with tears. "I wish your mom could see me now," he whispered. "She would be proud," Emily said. "I know I am." He kissed her forehead, something he hadn't done in years. "I love you, Emily," she smiled. "I love you too, Dad." That night, Mark sat alone in his room. He looked up at the ceiling and spoke to his late wife. "I didn't get it right before," he said softly, "but I'm trying now, and I'll keep trying. Thank you for giving me Emily. She saved me in ways I'll never be able to explain." Outside, the stars blinked quietly in the sky. Inside, a father had finally found peace in the words he once couldn't say. He now said them every day and meant them with all his heart. The end.
The next morning, Mark woke up in the hospital chair with a stiff neck and dry eyes. The thin hospital blanket had slipped off during the night. He looked at Emily, still asleep, still silent. A nurse came in to check on her. Mark stretched his back and stood up, stepping aside. He was too afraid to ask if anything had changed. Every time someone opened that door, he held his breath. After the nurse left, he sat back down and stared at his daughter. She looked like she was just taking a nap. If you didn't know better, you'd think she would open her eyes at any moment and say, "Morning, Dad." He wished she would. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small photo one he had kept folded for years. It was a picture of Emily when she was 4, wearing a paper crown and chocolate frosting on her cheeks from her birthday cake. She had made that crown herself in preschool and insisted on wearing it all day. Mark remembered that day clearly. She had waited at the front door for him, her tiny hands gripping the windowsill. "Daddy's home," she shouted when he finally arrived. She had run into his arms. And what had he said? Not "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Not "I love you, princess." He had said, "Be careful, you'll wrinkle your dress." He remembered how her smile faded a little. Not completely, but just enough for him to notice. He had told himself he was tired, that he'd make it up to her later. But later never came. That was the story of their life together. Always waiting for later. Mark looked at her now, 15 years old. Grown up and yet still his little girl. He leaned closer and began to speak, not loudly, but softly, as if whispering secrets into the wind. "Do you remember the park behind our old house?" he asked. "You used to love the swings. You made me push you for hours. I always complained, but I loved it. I really did." He smiled, even though his chest ached. "And that time we made pancakes together? You put blueberries in the batter and called them sky pancakes. I didn't even know what that meant, but you were so proud of yourself. You made a huge mess in the kitchen, flour everywhere. I got mad. I yelled." His smile faded. "I shouldn't have yelled. I should have taken a picture. Or laughed. I should have just let you be a kid." He wiped his eyes. "You were such a good kid, Emmy. So smart. So kind. You deserved more than a father who stayed quiet all the time. I thought doing the right thing meant providing everything. But I forgot the most important thing, love." The room stayed silent, but the memories in his head felt loud. He remembered her first dance recital, when she forgot the steps and cried backstage. The way she used to draw stars on his lunch bags in grade school. The time she got sick and asked only for him. She had always reached out to him, always tried to pull him closer. But he had kept his distance, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know how to show it. He had learned to build walls, not bridges. There was a knock at the door. Mark turned. It was Olivia, his ex-wife. She looked tired, her eyes red from crying. "Hi," she said gently. "Hi," Mark replied. She stepped in and looked at Emily, her lips pressed tight. "No change?" she asked. Mark shook his head. They stood in silence for a while. Finally, Olivia said, "She always loved you, you know, even when you didn't say much." "I know," Mark whispered. Olivia sighed. "She used to ask me all the time, 'Does Dad love me?' And I'd tell her yes. But she wanted to hear it from you." Mark's chest felt like it was splitting open. "She used to write you letters," Olivia continued, her voice soft. "I found them in her drawer. She never sent them. Just little notes about her day, about how she wished you'd say you were proud of her." Mark's hands curled into fists. "I never knew. I think part of her always hoped one day you'd open up. Say it. Really say it." Mark sat down again, feeling heavier than ever. He stared at Emily. He had wasted so many chances. Now he was praying for just one more. After Olivia left, Mark stayed at her bedside the rest of the day. He didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He just kept talking, telling stories, sharing memories. Saying the words he had kept locked away for too long. By nightfall, something unexpected happened. Emily's hand twitched. At first, he thought he imagined it, but then it moved again just slightly. He jumped up and called the nurse. Moments later, Olivia was back. Doctors filled the room. Machines beeped louder. Mark stood frozen in the corner, staring. A miracle? Hope? He didn't know. But he knew this. He would never stay silent again. Not if he got another chance. Not if life gave him even one moment to show her the love she had always deserved.